Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast. Today we're really diving in, taking an adventurous look at the story of Ben Affleck. We're aiming to go beyond the usual headlines, uncover those unexpected turns and key moments that have really shaped his, well, quite varied career.
Exactly. We've spent time looking through his whole journey from the early days, right through to his work as a director and, of course, the personal stuff he's navigated. It's a story with, I think, surprising depth and a lot of resilience, actually.
Okay, so let's kick off at the beginning. Benjamin Geza Affleck Bolt, born in Berkeley, California, 1972. But the story really gets going when the family moved to Massachusetts, right? He was only 3. They ended up in Cambridge. Sounds like that upbringing really laid some interesting groundwork.
It seems like it. His mother, Christopher Ann Bolt, she was a Harvard-educated teacher, and his father, Timothy Byers Affleck, was this aspiring playwright, but he worked all sorts of jobs: carpenter, mechanic, bookie, electrician, janitor, even acting himself for a bit.
Wow, quite a mix. So you have this intellectual, artistic side from his mom, and then this very grounded working reality from his dad. Must have been formative.
Absolutely. And they were in this politically active, liberal household. Lots of arts around, theater trips, making home movies were encouraged. It really does feel like the stage was set early on for a creative path.
Yeah, you can see that. And someone, a family friend, described him as very bright and intensely curious. That curiosity seems like a thread that runs through, doesn't it?
It really does. And it's pretty remarkable his professional acting started so young, 7 years old.
7.
Yeah, apparently his mom knew a casting director.
That's quite a start. And then that story about him being 13, spending a year in Mexico filming a kid's TV show
Yeah,
and learning Spanish fluently.
right. It points to this early adaptability, maybe a willingness to just jump into new things.
Definitely. Then back in high school, the theater bug really bit, inspired by his drama teacher, Jerry Specca. And of course, this is where that famous partnership with Matt Damon starts taking shape.
The iconic duo. It's amazing picturing them as teenagers, with these identical interests, as they said, both dead set on acting, traveling to New York for auditions, pooling their money in a shared bank account.
That kind of shared drive and support from that age is pretty special.
It really is. Speaks volumes about their bond. And even his college attempts, University of Vermont for Spanish, then Occidental for Middle Eastern affairs, it suggests this broader curiosity, even if acting was always the main goal. That basketball injury at Vermont may be one of those little twists of fate.
So from those early days, let's track his first steps into the actual industry. That first role at 7 was in an indie film, The Dark End of the Street. But the bigger early thing was that PBS series, The Voyage of the Mimi, right? I think I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, that was probably his most significant child acting gig. He worked on it off and on between 8 and 15, filming in Massachusetts and back in Mexico again. Plus, the usual stuff, TV movies, even a Burger King commercial as a teen. A real mix.
Right, paying the dues. Then after high school, he tried New York for acting, then headed back west to Occidental College, directing student films there. Seems like he was always drawn to the behind-the-camera side, too, even then.
Looks that way. But the role that really kind of put him on the map, gave him that initial buzz, was Kevin Smith's Chasing Amy in 97.
Ah, yes. Smith wrote that part for him specifically.
He did, and Affleck got really strong reviews for it. It showed he could handle more complex lead-type material, a really crucial step.
And then, Good Will Hunting. The film that just changed everything. Co-writing it, starring in it with Damon. What a moment.
Absolutely monumental. And the story behind the script itself is pretty great. Started as a play Damon wrote for a class at Harvard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they hammered it out together in Affleck's apartment. You can just picture these two young guys pouring everything into this story, then getting it sold in 94, the slight studio back and forth, and eventually landing at Miramax, which was a huge deal for indie film back then.
And winning the Oscar. Best Original Screenplay, he was only 25. Youngest writers ever to win it.
Incredible validation, wasn't it? It wasn't just the award itself, it instantly made them serious players in Hollywood. Creative forces to be reckoned with.
And for Affleck, that directly opened doors to leading roles in big studio movies.
Exactly. Like Armageddon in 1998. That was the definition of a late 90s blockbuster.
It's funny thinking the director, Michael Bay, apparently first thought he was kind of a geek.
Right. But producer Jerry Bruckheimer saw something, pushed for him. Apparently, he even had to get his teeth fixed and work out for the role. Classic Hollywood makeover story.
Huh. And that same year, he's also in Shakespeare in Love, which won Best Picture. He had a supporting part, but people noted his comedic work.
Yeah, showing some range early on. He wasn't just the action guy or the serious writer.
But Hollywood careers, they have ups and downs, don't they?
They certainly do. And
Right.
the early 2000s, well, that brought a string of films that just didn't land well critically.
Right. And that coincided with that period of intense tabloid focus, the whole Ben Affleck thing first time around.
He's been pretty open about feeling that the constant media scrutiny back then really hurt his career, made it hard for people to see the work past the noise.
Yeah, you can imagine. It led him to take a break, step back for a bit.
Which seemed like a smart move in retrospect, because then came the comeback, starting with his performance in Hollywoodland in 2006.
Playing George Reeves, Superman.
Mm.
That role got him serious acting recognition again, didn't it? Won the Volti Cup at Venice Film Festival.
It really did. A powerful performance that reminded everyone of his talent. And then he stepped behind the camera for his feature directing debut.
Gone Baby Gone in 2007.
Yeah, based on the Dennis Lefane novel, set in Boston, critically acclaimed, showed a completely different side of this mature, confident directorial voice. That gritty realism really landed.
He followed that up by directing and starring in The Town in 2010, another Boston crime story, another success.
He was really building momentum as a director. It's a fascinating transition to watch.
And then came Argo, 2012.
Just massive, huge hit critically, huge hit commercially. Directing and starring in a film that wins the Academy Award for Best Picture.
That's the pinnacle.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And he won the BAFTA for Best Director for it, too. Just solidified his status as a top-tier filmmaker.
And even while hitting these directing highs, he kept acting in interesting projects, like David Fincher's Gone Girl in 2014.
Yeah.
Got great notices for that performance, too.
Yeah, it seemed like he'd found this really effective balance, excelling both in front of and behind the camera. He navigated that tough patch and came out stronger, more respected.
Okay, let's talk Batman. Casting him definitely stirred the pot online, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of initial backlash from certain fan groups. Skepticism was high.
But when Batman v Superman came out in 2016, his actual performance.
Generally well received, actually. Many people felt his take on an older, more jaded Bruce Wayne was one of the film's strengths. A compelling interpretation.
And he played the role for a few years in the DC movies. Around the same time, he also did The Accountant.
Which was a surprise hit. Did really well commercially. Showed he still had that star power for different kinds of movies.
But then the news came he wouldn't be directing or starring in the solo Batman movie anymore.
Right. He said he couldn't crack it, lost his passion for that particular story. Seemed like a very candid, maybe difficult decision to make publicly.
Yeah. And then, in 2020, came the way back, playing a high school basketball coach struggling with alcoholism.
That performance really resonated. Given his own public struggles with alcohol, it felt incredibly personal, very raw.
He filmed it right after a rehab stay, apparently had a sober coach on set.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of courage.
Immense courage. That vulnerability definitely connected with people. And then most recently, Air in 2023. Directed it, starred in it alongside Damon.
The Air Jordan story. Got great reviews.
Yeah, really well received. And significantly, it was the first film from Artists Equity, the production company he started with Matt Damon.
Feels like a full circle moment, doesn't it? Back to collaborating with his oldest friend, but now with more control, focusing on the creative process.
It really does. And speaking of that partnership, here's a great little detail. Really highlights their connection. Their first production company, Pearl Street Films.
Okay.
Named after the actual street that ran between their childhood homes in Cambridge.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Really says something about how deep those roots go.
Doesn't it just?
Yeah.
Now, beyond the film work, he's also been involved in philanthropy and politics.
Right. He co-founded the Eastern Congo Initiative back in 2010.
Yeah, a nonprofit doing grant making and advocacy work for the DRC. He's also supported lots of other causes, veteran groups, food banks, USO tours. Seems genuinely committed.
And politically.
He calls himself moderately liberal, mentioned being raised in a very strong union household. He supported Democratic candidates like Obama and Clinton, spoken out on things like minimum wage. He's also talked about supporting the Second Amendment, but expressed discomfort with gun culture, especially after various tragedies.
It's interesting to see that engagement alongside the Hollywood career. Now, of course, his personal life has always been under a microscope.
Intensely so. His relationships, first with Gwyneth Paltrow, then marrying Jennifer Garner in 2005, having 3 children, and their divorce in 2018.
And the whole Ben Affleck saga. The intense media attention with Jennifer Lopez in the early 2000s, the called-off wedding, the split.
All played out very publicly, and then years later they rekindled things, got married in 2022, and then, well, divorced again more recently. It's kept the public fascinated.
He's also been strikingly open about his struggles with alcoholism.
Yeah, discussing going to rehab multiple times. That kind of honesty takes real guts, especially with his level of fame.
Absolutely. It probably helps reduce the stigma for others facing similar issues.
No doubt. It's a reminder that addiction doesn't discriminate. On a lighter note, didn't he win a major poker tournament once?
He did. The 2004 California State Poker Championship. Shows a different kind of focus, maybe.
Maybe. And then there was that incident in Vegas where he was asked to stop playing blackjack because they thought he was counting cards. He denied having a gambling problem, but it's another one of those unique side stories.
Huh? Definitely adds some color. Lastly, we should probably mention his response regarding the Me Too movement and Harvey Weinstein.
Yes. When the allegations against Weinstein surfaced, Affleck pledged to donate future profits from his early Miramax films to charities supporting assault victims. There was an initial critical response from actress Rose McGowan, who said she'd told him about Weinstein. He later stated he believed and supported her, and McGowan clarified her earlier comments somewhat. It was a complex situation during a difficult time for the industry.
It certainly was. Okay, deep breath. If you're finding all these layers to Ben Affleck's story as compelling as we are, please make sure you hit that subscribe button for Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast. That way, you won't miss out on our future deep dives into other fascinating lives.
So wrapping up our look at Ben Affleck's journey, what stands out most for you?
For me, it's got to be the sheer arc of it all. You know, child actor, Oscar-winning screenwriter practically overnight, massive movie star, then the critical backlash, the tabloid hell, and then reinventing himself as this highly respected Oscar-winning director. And navigating personal struggles so publicly, it's quite a trajectory.
It really is. His story is such a powerful illustration that careers and lives just don't follow straight lines, do they? There are these peaks, these deep valleys, moments of reinvention, personal challenges. They all shape the person and the work.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this latest phase, focusing on directing again with Air, launching artist equity with Damon, it feels significant. Like a move toward more collaboration, maybe more equitable creative partnerships. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Could we see other established Hollywood figures follow that kind of model, seeking more control, fairer partnerships in how films get made?
It's an interesting thought. It definitely suggests a potential desire for a different way of working within the system, maybe prioritizing the creative partnership more, something to ponder.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast for this exploration into the world of Ben Affleck. We hope you found some surprising angles and maybe a new perspective on a very familiar face. Until our next story unfolds,